Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we're going to do another ice cream recipe. And this is one that was submitted by a whole bunch of viewers in the comment sections. They wanted brown bread ice cream, which apparently is pretty big in Ireland. So I've got some breadcrumbs and we're going to fix those up later. They get special treatment. We're going to start out with the ice cream base. Pretty similar to all of the ice cream bases that we've made so far. I'm going to make a couple of changes, a couple of tweaks this time. So we're starting out with, this is heavy cream, 35% milk fat heavy cream, into a pot over medium high heat. We want to bring this up to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Next in is milk, and this is 3.25 milk fat. Then I'm going to put in some dry milk powder, and this is fat-free or skim milk powder. It's essentially just milk protein. That goes in. Some salt. Everything needs salt. Some brown sugar. And the last ingredient is, of course, corn syrup, and just a little bit of corn syrup. Now, this is not high fructose corn syrup. It's just regular corn syrup. It is an invert sugar, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Now, ice cream is a science. It's a very serious science. Every university that has a food science program deals with the science of ice cream. It's very well studied. And there are tons of books on the process of making ice cream and the interplay between the different ingredients and what your eventual outcome is going to be. There's an interplay between the amount of fat, the amount of protein, the amount of water, the amount of sugar, and the type of sugar in ice cream that all affect the eventual outcome of what the texture feels like in your mouth, what the texture is like when you try to scoop it, what the perception of flavor is. So fat and protein play a role in that. How sweet it tastes, again, fat and protein, the amount of sugar, where the sugar comes from, all of these things. There are some very extensive and expensive software available that will help you figure all of this out. But there are also some free online resources, and I will link to some of those below. This is crème fraîche. I'm going to put in a little bit of crème fraîche. You could use cream cheese or sour cream if you can't get crème fraîche, which is quite a possibility. So we're going to melt the crème fraîche in there. Now, the crème fraîche is just going to add extra fat. The corn syrup or invert sugar changes the freezing point of water, lowers the freezing point of the water, which gives you a smaller ice crystal structure. The milk powder that we added is added protein, and the proteins change the way that the ice cream foams, essentially foams. It's not really foaming, but it's kind of a foam. But how the air bubbles are structured, and the added protein changes that air bubble structure, which makes it feel creamier and is easier to scoop. So I've got egg yolks here, and this is just plain white sugar. I'm going to put that in, and I'm going to whisk these egg yolks up while we wait for the cream to reach 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I've never thrown this 160 degrees at you before. We've always just sort of scalded the milk and then tempered the egg yolks and then brought this up to 170 degrees Fahrenheit. 160 this time because we're going to hold it at 160 degrees for 25 minutes. So I don't want to go over that 160 to begin with. And this long cook time holding at that temperature is going to change the protein structure of the cream, giving us, hopefully, a really, really wonderful texture to this ice cream. So we're almost there. Okay, so we're going to temper the egg yolks, which isn't a really big deal. You just pour in a little bit of milk and whisk and whisk and a little bit more. And there, you're good. Okay, and now we just pour this back into the pot. And I'm going to stand here and stir this fairly constantly for the next 20-25 minutes, holding this pot to 160 degrees Fahrenheit or thereabouts. You don't really want to go under 160, and you don't probably want to go over 165. You want to hold it in that range. Okay, 25 minutes of stirring is up. I managed to maintain the temperature pretty close to that 160 through most of the cook. I had to ride the temperature gauge up and down. I had to keep changing the power on the stove. If you have a gas stove, it would be so much easier. And I know that a lot of people are going to say, why not do it sous vide? Part of this process is also how much water you drive off. There is a significant amount of water that has evaporated from this pot, and you just wouldn't get that evaporation if you did it in a closed container. Okay, at this point, it's off the heat, so we're going to add some vanilla. And a little bit of Irish whiskey. I don't know if I have Irish whiskey. Do I have Irish whiskey? I've got Scotch, I've got rye, I've got Canadian, I have a bottle of Tullamore Dew, the legendary Irish whiskey Tullamore Dew. Okay, so I'm gonna put about a tablespoon in, and of course, you don't need the whiskey if you don't want it. Just gonna add a little bit of flavor, completely leave it out. Now, I wanna chill this down as quickly as possible, and I want to keep it in the fridge until it is fully chilled. And if you can leave this overnight and make the ice cream tomorrow, that would make it all the better. While the ice cream base is chilling down in the fridge, we're going to deal with the breadcrumbs. Now, we're starting out with dry, super dry brown bread in tiny little cubes. You know, I've cut them up pretty small, and I've put into this pot some butter, salted butter. And we're going to melt this down and let it go to the point where it starts to turn brown, just before it burns. Now when you're browning butter, you're going to see this. It's going to foam up and you're going to hear it. It's going to sound like it's boiling, and that's the water from the butter being driven off. And just before it reaches the browning point, the sizzling will stop. It'll go silent, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, it's just about silent, and I'm going to give it a bit of a stir, and you can see that it's brown underneath, and it's got a really nice nutty smell. Okay, nice and brown. So, in go the bread crumbs or the bread cubes, and we toss it around to coat them fully with the brown butter, and at the same time, in goes some sugar, some salt, and some cinnamon. And we just keep tossing and stirring to coat it all. So I have a quarter sheet here with some parchment paper on it, and we're just going to dump these out onto the sheet tray. The oven has been preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm just going to put this out into a single layer and stick it in the oven, and I'm going to bake it for 25 to 30 minutes. And then maybe once or twice during the baking, I'll take it out and give these a stir and toss them around a little bit. The bread has been browned, the ice cream machine is cold, and our ice cream mixture is ready. So I'm going to pour this in. I'm going to start the ice cream mixer, and at about halfway through, I'm going to add the browned bread pieces. And once the cycle of the ice cream machine is complete, I'm going to transfer our ice cream to a cold glass bowl and stick it in the freezer for a couple of hours before we do the tasting. Hey, Jules.
Yay, it's ice cream day!
It is ice cream day. I'm going to stick this back in the freezer so it doesn't thaw too much.
Good plan.
So, it's either brown bread ice cream or browned bread ice cream, depending on who you talk to. And some people say that it absolutely has to be made with brown bread. That's where it gets its name from. And other people I consult said, no, it gets its name from the fact that the bread is browned.
And in some instances,
burnt.
Glen took his eye off the pan a couple times.
This was my third attempt, because you take your mind away for like a minute and you come back and the smoke alarm is going off. So be careful. Watch it carefully. It's good. I like the flavor.
I think this would be really great with some rum in it. It's got that rum and raisin, something about that caramely flavor of
It's got a little bit of whiskey in it.
Oh, well, that would explain why I
you're-
have that alcohol-y kind of rum and raisin, but I know it's whiskey. Okay, my mistake. My mistake. Apparently, I'm not very good at identifying
You've got
my
that,
alcohols
that barrel flavor.
by taste.
And it's not overpowering. It's just enough that you sort of get this idea that it should be there, but it is there. The browned bread is interesting. Now,
I haven't had a piece of it, like a whole piece. I'm just gonna.
here's the thing that after I finally got this right and I tasted one, I said, why is this not a thing? Why are sweet sugar croutons not a thing? Why are they not on everything? Sweet sugar croutons.
Salad.
We need to make that a thing. Yeah.
Sweet sugar. I feel like I should have one. And I'm actually surprised because I was expecting the bread to be kind of a weird texture within it, but it actually works out okay. It's not any different than like a praline.
Try the crouton.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really know what the origin is. Pretty much everybody who said to me you should make this ice cream ties it back to Ireland. Some of the people in the know that I spoke to seem to tie it back to Ireland, but who knows where it actually comes from. Doesn't really matter where it comes from.
It's worth trying.
It's worth trying. It's really good. So, another winter ice cream. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.